Hello friends and welcome back. This is Jenny from Polly's Paper Studio. If you're new here, welcome. I hope that you will consider hitting that subscribe button so you can join the Polly's Paper Studio fam. If you're an OG, welcome back to you as well, and thank you for choosing to spend some time with me. So today I'm going to create this raised panel greeting card, and I have wanted to make one of these for quite a while, but I had always thought that it was going to involve math and measuring, and I am not about the measuring, so I'm just going to show you how I used some simple dies to create this look, and I think it will be perfect for any all occasion greeting card. So stick with me, we'll make this together. Here's my card base. It is 5 by 6.5 inches. I finished the inside with the collection paper, and I'll come back in later and add a portion for a sentiment to be added. We can work on the cover for now, and I have this beautiful pattern from this Stamperia paper pad. This is Wonderland, has lots of fantasy styled images and stylized flowers. It's very pretty and soft and whimsical. I picked this as my background. It has a little bit of mixed media printing on it, so that was a nice way to get a little added detail without doing additional steps. I came in with my distressing tool and I roughed up the edges so that it would have a nice texture, and also stitched it. So I just ran that through with my sewing machine, and that will add a little bit of extra detail as well. I'm just going to adhere that right to the front of my card. Then before I bring in the next layer, what I want to add is this tulle netting. I picked this up from Walmart. You can get that in the bridal and the craft department, and there's quite a bit on that roll. It goes a long way. I cut it to be the size of that background because I want some of it to be showing when I add on the additional layers. So I'll just tack that on with a little of that hot glue. That'll just hold it in place while I add the additional layers. This adds a nice texture as well. For the next layer, I'm using the B side to this pattern paper, so I'm getting a lot of use out of that single sheet. And I did the same treatment, so it's distressed and then stitched, and then it still has that cardstock layer. I picked a Dove Gray because I thought it was a nice neutral. I'm going to add this with foam. I put my regular layer of adhesive tape and also some Tombow Mono multi-adhesive. Then when I add it to the card, that's going to start to build up some dimension. That's just going to go right on to that netting because the wet adhesive will seep through and hold that very securely. So here is the base, and now I want to bring in the panel section. So what I did was I went back through and checked out my dies for a rectangle that would fit nicely as a grouping on my card front, and I don't really care to do math or measure things, so I did a couple trial practice cuts to see if I could get as many panels on as I had hoped. So I generally do not measure or do math, so I just did this with some scrap paper and decided that this would be a great size in a series of 3 as a second dimensional layer. Now I cut mine from the collection paper, obviously, and then I put that on some foam backing so that that will continue to build the layers. I also added my glitter snow. Of course, it's not snow. It's just this Ellene's glitter snow. I use it in place of like texture paste or stencil paste. It dries the same, it looks the same, but this little tube has lasted me for quite a while now, and it doesn't ever dry up inside, which I always found to be a problem with stencil paste, is that it would dry up before I could use it all. But this one has been going for years and it is still perfectly usable. So pick this up from Amazon. So I have 3 panels, and I want to measure these out just by placing them down upside down first, because I want to make sure to get them roughly placed evenly right to left and up and down. Of course, I didn't measure that. I think it will help that I distress the edges of the paper so that it won't be as noticeable if I get it a little bit off, but I think this will be good. So what I'll do is I'll tip over the middle one and add that first, and then it will be easy to add the second and third one based on the position of the middle. I'm just going to add that wet adhesive first. This is the Tombow Mono Multi, and I've had a lot of luck using the Aleene's Tacky Glue as well. And I think sometimes that sets up a little bit faster. So if you have that, you can definitely substitute that. So I'll just kind of rework my positioning. It's hard to get them without getting my big old head in the camera. But I think that looks okay. So I'll tip over this one first. This has writing on it, but I don't think much of it will show. So I'm not that worried about getting that right side up. Okay, so now I can add the second and third one based on the position of the center one. So this is really going to act as a substitute for a large vintage image, which I usually do put like a focal image inside and then work my flower arrangement around it. But this is going to be more of a graphic detail behind those flowers, and so I'm not going to be using a large image. I typically like to arrange my flowers off project, but I do get a fair amount of requests asking to see how I put them together. So I'm just going to attempt to do them on the card base itself without pre-arranging them. I have started with some chipboard flourishes. These came from Gypsy Soul Laser Cuts. This is a Fanciful Element collection, and it is part of a larger frame. It's hard to see in here, but there are portions that you can snip off if the flourish that you need is smaller. I don't have a lot of room on here, so I decided just to take a portion of those, and then I'm just going to size them by placing the corners down and deciding that that is the size that I want instead of how it came originally. I have finished these in a flat white acrylic. I don't know how much is gonna show once I get my flowers on, so I'll just be as surprised as you are. And I'm not really concerned if it comes out from underneath, because all of that is going to be underneath additional layers. I've also die cut some longer foliage. So these came from the Cherry Lynn Designs, and I just cut them in green. I wanted them to be sort of like a leaf flourish, and I'm gonna balance these. So you see every time I'm doing a thing to the top, I'll also do a thing to the bottom, and that helps to create that balance. So that is going to be the base for the flowers. Now what I've done is I pulled out all the flowers that I know I want to use. I'm just going to kind of pre-arrange them, sort of, you know, decide what my placement's going to be and how many I can work in. So I think what I want to do is like balance these smaller flowers so that I alternate the colors. This will also help to extend the flowers in the middle if I pull them closer to the outside of the arrangement. I've also die cut a few of these rose leaves. Those are from Cherry Lynn Designs as well. I adhered them together so that they made like a, you know, a little smaller section, and then I'm gonna bring in my loopy twine bows and add those. This is ivory burlap string from Really Reasonable Ribbon, and it really helps to use this. It kind of becomes a filler and softens the edges of some of the harder edges, and I probably want to put, you know, balance one side to the other like I have been doing. I'm trimming off those tails before I add it to the card. That'll just be easier. And I know one will go over here as well. So maybe I can start to tack these in Let's start with this leaf. I'll just tuck it under here. Remember, when you start securing these down, they generally take up far less space. So keep that in mind when you're tacking things in. You need to condense the arrangement more than it looks like it is when you've laid it out. You'll have to forgive me the sound of that super loud glue gun going back in the bin. I'm still going to hold these in place because I'm going to keep my measurements for where all that goes. Now I want to do, maybe put the blue one down so that it's on the opposite end. Then I'll add the second one, sort of layering that over. I don't want to lose too much of that underneath of these larger flowers. Okay, so here's that second set of leaves. This pretty magnolia is from Really Reasonable Rib. When it came in the package, it was quite thick, so I kind of went around and sort of finger pressed all that in so that I could make it a little bit flatter. That one's going to go on the bottom because I know I want my focal color to be that pretty bluey green, so I don't mind covering up a fair bit of this one. Make sure when you have these bulky flowers that you really press them in well, because they're heavy and you want a good contact between those layers with the adhesive, so you know they will be nice and secure. So here's that last flower, and that will go there. So I think that is a nice floral arrangement, and I didn't lose the full effect of those smaller panels. You can definitely still tell they're separate pieces. I pre-tied a small bow from checkerboard satin, and I have a couple of metal charms here. I pulled inspiration for these from the dragonfly that was in the collection paper. I don't have one showing here, but I did think that they sort of went with the more whimsical patterns. And I'm going to do, as I always do, I'll just hold these in place where I know I want them to fall. And I'm going to secure these before I put the bow on. So this is going to capture those tails underneath of the bow. Clip this off first because that'll be easier than when you have the bow added. And some of this bow volume will go underneath that flower. So get a good dollop of your glue on there. I'm gonna hold up that flower a little bit and really push it in so that it kind of fills up the space, and then work the petals back down over top of it. So that fills in this corner. Now what I'm thinking right now is that I am not real happy with how fragile this looks because it didn't stick down with adhesive. So I'm just gonna tack it down really quickly with this Tombow. It will stick very well to that chipboard. I just don't want it to become caught on something so that it could be torn when the packaging is taken off. So that is a nice large sweeping floral arrangement for the center. I brought down some prills. This is Sage Advice. It's sort of an aqua color again. I'm gonna use my bead tray and then I'll add some beads in with that same Tombow mono very selectively. You don't want to go all over and crazy with these. It's really just meant to be a very subtle detail. You want to do this step before adding anything like sequins because it will definitely want to stick to the adhesive that you stick your sequin down with. So this is definitely the best time. I'm just going to kind of tap it so that all the little small particulates will find their way into that glue. And then you can shake off the rest, and now you can see you definitely need a bead tray because otherwise those pearls would have gone all over and crazy. So put some more on this side as well. Remember, we're trying to achieve a nice balance. Shake them in and then take off the excess. This will dry very quickly. That Tombow is nice. You can also come in if you have a few stragglers here and remove them. They do want to stick a little bit to the strings and twine, so you can take those off. This is helping also, I think, to fill in a little bit of the arrangement. So I'll do just a little bit here. And then maybe some down here as well. Okay, last but not least are those sequins, and I just picked sort of an iridescent color. It's off-white, and it just has a very nice subtle shine to it, so it isn't standing out quite so much. I'll use that same Tombow to tack that in. So that is all for my raised panel all occasion greeting card created with the Stamperia Wonderland collection. If you want to check that out, I will link it in the description below, as well as our social media sites. As always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day, and I thank you so much for watching. Bye.